Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, what does the recovery of a vehicle from the Henops River today that 3 officers were traveling in when they disappeared tell us about what happened to them? Police first recovered their bodies following days of their disappearance. Now they've recovered the vehicle they were traveling in. Police Minister Mchunu will speak to us. Also on the show, was there political interference in the prosecution of apartheid-era crimes referred to the NPA by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? That's the question that the Commission of Inquiry the President announced yesterday will answer. The man who recommended that an inquiry be established to figure this out is Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza, and he joins us tonight. And then later, as South Africa celebrates Workers' Day, we reflect on the state of the country 31 years into democracy with struggle veteran Frank Chikane. The country still grapples with an array of economic challenges, including high unemployment rate, extreme inequality, and there's also the issue of crime. We'll also hear from him what he makes of the state of the government of national unity. But first, my comment. So President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced that he will establish a commission of inquiry into delays in the investigation and prosecution of apartheid-era crimes referred by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to the National Prosecuting Authority. Obviously, as you may know, there have been lots of allegations of political interference in these cases. Here's the presidency spokesperson explaining what the work of this commission of inquiry will entail.
Allegations of improper influence in delaying or hindering the investigation and prosecution of apartheid-era crimes have persisted from previous administrations. Through this commission, President Ramaphosa is determined that the true facts be established and the matter brought to finality. The presidency will shortly make an announcement on the head of the commission of inquiry, the timeframes, and the full terms of reference.
So former TRC Commissioner Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza was actually asked by the NPA to investigate whether anyone could face charges for alleged interference in the prosecution or lack thereof of 300 cases identified by the TRC in which alleged perpetrators have not been granted amnesty. So Ntsebeza was the one that recommended that there be a commission of inquiry to investigate why these cases have stalled. Listen to what the NPA head, Advocate Shamila Batohi, told me when she was here on Face the Nation a couple of months ago about the failure of the NPA to prosecute such cases.
On dealing with political interference, I mean, there's been the Rodriguez case where the judge actually found that there was political interference in these matters. And so, you know, that is a finding of a court. And so I suppose, you know, and you know, there was also statements made by prosecutors that alluded to the fact that there was political interference at the time. So we have worked from the premise in the NPA that we have to deal with accountability now in terms of holding people accountable with prosecutions or inquests, reopening inquests. So that is what we are focusing on. So, you know, the issue of political interference, as I said, there have been statements made to that effect. When I took office in 2019, you know, reading from State Capture, a broken and fractured organization that we needed to rebuild, we had many, many priorities, including TRC matters, which you correctly state. You know, for 30 years, we had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but you know, prosecutions thereafter, and, you know, many people were granted amnesty in that process, but many people didn't. And we can go into the long history of why this didn't happen over, you know, the period of 30 years. But When we took office, as you mentioned the figures earlier on, working with General Labia in the DPCI, we realized we needed to have a dedicated capacity to bring people to account for TRC matters. You know, time is not on our side. We have suspects that are dying, we have witnesses that we are dying, and we have families that don't feel they have received justice. So we have, you know, this dedicated capacity working with the DPCI. Currently, there are 126 cases that are under investigation. 104 new investigations have been opened since 2021. Since September 2021, the original findings of 5 inquests have been overturned. So what we've done is, where inquests were held many years ago, you know, many of them found that it was suicide and didn't really find that, you know, the state apparatus was responsible for the death. So we reopened these inquests where we had new evidence. And in fact, in 2025, there are some inquests that are going to be reopened, including that of Mr. Griffiths Mtenge, Chief Lutuli, and Mr. Boy Manti. Those are 3 of several that will be open next year. There are 6 matters on the criminal court rolls at the moment, and the first post-September 21 conviction was secured in 2023 September, when the accused was sentenced to 10 years direct imprisonment. So there's a lot of work going on in terms of trying to hold people accountable.
Yeah, that's what the advocate Shamila Batohi, the head of the NPA, said the last time she was on Face the Nation. Now the president has announced this inquiry. Do you think that that's what we need now? Another commission of inquiry that will help us clear the air, so to speak, where all actors have the opportunity to state their case, maybe including the former president, Thabo Mbeki. I mean, he had sent out a statement a few months ago. This is now almost a decade after the former NPA head, Vusi Pikoli, first detailed how certain members of the Mbeki administration apparently tried to block the prosecution of these apartheid-era atrocities. In fact, in that statement, the former president dismissed those claims, noting, saying that nothing more than pure fabrication. That's how he described them. The office said, and I quote here in that statement, the NPA must demonstrate enough integrity by apologizing for not processing the TRC cases rather than engage in dishonorable behavior of trying to hide behind a fig leaf, which is nothing more than pure fabrication, end quote. So he basically stressed in that statement that during the time he was in government, there was no interference in the work of the NPA. He says even Vusi Pikoli at the time never even complained about this alleged interference to him personally. And if you remember, the NPA in court papers didn't really dispute the claims of interference. It said that the NPA does not deny that the executive branch of the state took what one can describe as political steps to manage the conduct of criminal investigations and possible prosecution of the perpetrators of political murders. So the question is, who interfered? The failure of the NPA to prosecute TRC-related crimes remains a sore point for many families and struggle activists who died at the hands of the apartheid security forces. I don't know how you can explain the fact that over 30 years later, there's still no accountability that's emanating from the outcome of the TRC process. I mean, TRC commissioners had to write a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa asking why government has failed to implement the recommendations of the commission. And also, how are we going to heal as a nation? How do we heal when we haven't seen accountability come out of processes like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? And who is to blame for that? For the failure to prosecute these TRC cases? Was there some secret deal that the ANC struck with the National Party? Who knows? What has led to these delayed prosecutions? These are some of the questions that a lot of people are asking. So the question we are asking you tonight is, do you think that this commission of inquiry will actually answer these questions that a lot of people are asking? Like, do you believe that there was political interference, and why? And do you think that this commission that the president has announced will help provide some clarity and accountability into these delayed TRC cases? Please share your thoughts with us by sending us a WhatsApp voice note on 07845 Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. After the break, we'll bring in Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza to talk about this commission of inquiry the President has announced. Stay with us. Welcome back. President Cyril Ramaphosa says he will announce the names of those who will head the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into delays in the investigation and prosecution of TRC cases. This follows his announcement yesterday that a process is underway to establish an inquiry into whether attempts were made to prevent the investigation or prosecution of apartheid-era crimes. Speaking to the media after the May Day celebrations today, the President said government would like the families of the victims to find closure. Former TRC Commissioner and Senior Counsel Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza joins us now. Advocate Ntsebeza, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
You are welcome. Good evening, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the President announcement, of course, comes after a legal commission, a legal opinion that was commissioned by the NPA recommended the establishment of this independent commission of inquiry to investigate whether there was political interference with the NPA between 2003 and 2017. You are the one that recommended that there must be a commission of inquiry. Does this give you hope?
Well, at least it's something in the correct direction because, President, you sometimes choose not to follow a recommendation by any commission. Because nothing very binding when recommendations are made. So I was the person assisted by advocates, and we then gave an opinion which highlighted, among other things, that the complaints by those in the NPA that there has been political interference, in the work that they were doing, especially in the TRC cases.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that even those people South Africans are going to say, look, they had this commission, all the commission, that commission, were targeted about this commission. So in our recommendations, we made it clear that it must not just be a commission with limitation. It must have powers,
Yeah.
It must over and above that have powers to subpoena any witnesses.
Yeah, and I suppose that's going to be important, those powers to subpoena everyone. Do you believe that the people will be keen to come and testify? I mean, I know that the one person who spoke openly about this at the time was Vusi Pikoli. He was the head of the NPA during the Thabo Mbeki administration. He has always insisted that there was interference. Apart from him, Advocate, who else do you think can come testify and help in the commission, in the work of this commission of inquiry?
First of all, from the NPA, certainly there are other guys like Akama, like McAdam, who were in the prosecution and who clearly made it very clear that they were interfered with. So, Vusi, even in the opinion that I was asking to obtain, to provide, Vusi did come because I had seen that he had made some complaints also to the Zondo Commission. And I was aware from, statements that had passed before my eyes, what I was doing besides from the NPA, that there were others. That's why I have been bold to say McAdam is one of them, Akamani is one of them, and Fosi, as you have indicated, is one of them. So it's stuck in my mind, the fact that one of the things that they highlighted, and they're supposed to say, you are going to find problems in getting ahead if you do not address this whole question. That's why then my thoughts, emphasize this political. They even mentioned, the Minister of Justice by name, and that's where we are.
Yeah. The presidency, in the statement that was released yesterday, said that while the parties have agreed to the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry, and that those parties includes the families as well and other stakeholders, they were not able to reach a settlement on other matters in this application, including the application for an order that declares the actions of various government entities unlawful and a violation of the applicant's rights, as well as the payment of the constitutional damages by the state. What are your thoughts on that, the fact that there was no agreement on that matter?
Well, unfortunately, I'm just aware of the application that they brought, which I believe also President Beki, Minister Mabanda thought, to get into the case as one of the applicants. So I'm not so sure what the relief is that is being sought. But I understand that, it may well be something that also is going to have to address this whole, these allegations. One sense of hope that there was political interference. Because I haven't heard, and in my report I said, look, it is fair for anyone, and especially for a lawyer like myself, we need to make sure that the other side is also heard. That is why I said in the recommendation, the commissioner will say, I have the power, to subpoena, and I have the power to subpoena witness, and I have the power to go inside and see documents which evidence before me, convinces me that I may, if I do that, come to understand, one, that factually speaking, there was political interference. And secondly, that the political interference was in this form, in the Minister of Justice and possibly in the President. And fortunately, for wanting to enter into this frame, they will now have the opportunity to put their side. Sorry.
Yeah. Is it possible for us to heal as a nation, Advocate, when we haven't seen accountability come out of processes like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Because it really, really, really is bizarre that over 30 years later, out of all those cases that you had identified as TRC commissioners, there really hasn't been progress in that regard. What are the consequences, you think, of the delays in this prosecution, or this lack of interest, or maybe even this political interference, and not only for the families of the victims, but just for the healing of this country that comes from such a painful history?
When once the truth has been made back, that is the first step towards the people in the country, not only the direct victims, but people who in this country have been saying, what was this TRC all about? When I made that recommendation, I thought that this is an important moment, especially when the NPA itself instructed you to say, what are the measures that should take in order to deal with these TRC matters? Now, I'm paraphrasing, the agreement. And therefore, it still goes back to what you remember that the so-called TRC commission, commissioner, was intended to promote national unity, conciliation. Now, but the assumption there was that truth in its entirety should be relied upon in order for there to be anything at all. So this commission is probably another second bite at the chair, because this is now going to have to probe at least one aspect of it in terms of recommendations, where there no political, intervention that we need. And if there were, to what end are those political interventions? And depending on the answer that this commission will get, then I'm sure it will be in a position to say, at least not all is lost. My only regret is the fact that so many, have gone before. I mean, our first report was handed to President Mandela in 1998. But then, it was not as rich as the second report that was now made available to the authorities, the 2003 report. That 2003 report, also got, all this reliable information from the Amnesty Committee. The Amnesty Committee closed in 1998 with us. It went on up to 2003. And it was then that it said, there have been people here who came to apply for amnesty. Some of them didn't get amnesty.
Yeah.
Some of them applied for amnesty. They did not make a full disclosure. Our view as that commission, 2003, our view is that, there's a lot, that there are 300 cases of people who did not get amnesty. And so when I was, presented about a year or two ago with a brief that said, I must look at the measures that can or should be taken, then it was clear to me that there must be a commission of inquiry focused on the question of political instability.
Yeah. Well, what do you think this development means for the families of the victims of these apartheid atrocities? Because, Advocate Shamila Batohi, when she was on this show, she said one of the things that concerned her was that, witnesses are dying, so who's going to testify as well? So as time goes, there are going to be consequences just in the administration of justice, because who do you get to testify? The perpetrators themselves are also dying, because these are things that happened a long time ago. What hope do you think this brings for the families of the victim and this inquiry as well? I mean, do you think the families must take hope in that there will be some answers at the end?
Clement, I'm the eternal optimist. And some of the issues, some of the reasons why I'm an optimist in this case is the fact that so many years after we have submitted our report, it is still an issue that has not been resolved. Mm-hmm. I would hope, therefore, that now, except that, as I say, some of the witnesses would have been useful, or some of the operation perpetrators would be useful, then they were subpoenaed to just tell us what was going on. As long as there is an opportunity for truth to be unearthed, and with it, consequence arising for those in relation to which, there is no explanation for how those gross violations of human rights took place under their watch. Then, as I say, it's probably that causes me to say, well, it's an option. It is there,
Yeah.
But it is not in the hands of the commissioners. It is not in the hands of Ntsebeza who was briefed to give an indication of what measures must be taken.
All right.
It's now in the hands of the executive.
Yeah.
The executive must appoint the commission, and they must facilitate the acquisition of people who may do a good job too.
Okay.
In the way of evidence, in the way of who the panel is going to be.
All right. Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza, thank you so much for making time for us. He is the former TRC commissioner. He is the man that, in fact, made the recommendation for there to be a commission of inquiry into this matter. And now the president has acted on that recommendation, announcing that there will be a commission of inquiry that's going to look at whether there was, in fact, political interference. We've been asking you this evening whether you do think a commission of inquiry will provide clarity and accountability into these delayed TRC cases. We've asked you to send us your tweets. Alternatively, you can send us your WhatsApp voice notes on 078-459-1897. Some of the tweets that have come through, Dennis says the TRC belongs to history. The president should urgently consider establishing a commission of community service delivery. That's what we truly need as South Africans. Siabulela says, good evening to you and to your viewers. No inquiry will solve such. The president, with all his powers, could have made real means to have those resolved. The inquiry will be another way to scam us money we don't even have. Let him go to NPA prosecutors and lay proper orders there. All right, thank you so much for all your inputs. We'll be back after the break. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. Now, as South Africa celebrates Workers' Day, we reflect on the state of the country's 31 years of democracy. The democratic dispensation was a result of decades of the struggle for freedom, characterized by sweat, blood, and toil. Last year, the ANC lost its majority for the first time since 1994. This resulted in negotiations for a government of national unity. So as we take stock of where the country finds itself today, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the establishment of a commission on the delayed Truth and Reconciliation Commission prosecutions. Let's now bring in struggle stalwart and chairperson of the ANC's Integrity Commission, Reverend Frank Chikane, joining us via Zoom. Reverend Chikane, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners and those who are watching.
I want us to start off with this announcement the president made last night around this commission of inquiry that's going to look at the cases that have been delayed, that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission referred to the NPA. There have always been these allegations of political interference. What's your reaction to this announcement? Do you think this will provide finally some answers and clarity?
Well, you know, I knew there was a case in court, but I really never followed it. And then the announcement was made, and my immediate reaction was, well, I thought they would just take the cases to court and let the cases be dealt with accordingly. I did not expect that it will go through a commission. But that's the decision they've made. The problem with that is that it's going to take long before you then solve the problem about who's accountable or not, but the prosecution will not have happened. So for me, the priority is the prosecutions. If there's evidence to prosecute people, let them be prosecuted.
Yeah. Is there hope, though, that we will get to that place where people are prosecuted, given how it's so many years later, and even the NPA is concerned about possible witnesses or even possible suspects, because a lot of them have died. So then the question is, because it's taken so long to act, does this even provide any hope for the families, because they've waited for so long and there may not actually be proper prosecutions given how old some of the suspects or even some of the witnesses may be?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. By the way, I mean, I'm a pastor and I've had interactions with some of these families before. And I understand the pain that they are going through. And they always come to me because I've gone through this experience myself. The difference between me and them is that I took on the matter myself. The Flock van der Merwe matter of the poisoning. I took it up on my own. I wrote letters to every minister I thought knew about this, and the Surgeon General, everybody else, where I could. And slowly but surely, and I was in a privileged position, of course. I mean, at the leadership level, I was in the presidency, although I wrote to them in my private capacity, until I actually zeroed on a name of a person who would have been involved. I didn't know it's 3 people. They just used a code of 3 people. And when I zeroed on it and wrote to their lawyer, that's when action began to happen, and Flock came to me, brought van der Merwe, and the prosecution authority also moved in. There were conflicts within the prosecution authority about this matter, but I handled it the way in which I did, and we ended up in court. And the rest is history. I mean, they made all the confessions and etc. I think what really worried me, and it's related to these prosecutions, is that when you go to those court records, because they made confessions, they gave a list of the chemicals they ordered, and one of those is the one that was used against me. So this was presented in court as a record. And I've never understood why the prosecution authority and the police couldn't investigate each one of those chemicals that were ordered. And there were about 49 or so over a period of 3 months when they actually used them against me and others. That has not been done. I've even raised it to the media, by the way, and said to the media, but no one has written about this matter. It's such important, valuable information to charge people who use the chemicals against us. And it has never been done.
Yeah.
So that's why I also don't understand. But I did ultimately get confessions, and I know exactly what has happened. And I was satisfied that I can talk about it, I can write about it without anybody charging.
Yeah. And that now leads me to my next question about this country and us celebrating 31 years of democracy, and now we're doing it under this new dispensation of the GNU. What do you make of how this government has handled itself? But also, I'm interested in how you feel about the healing of this country, because we do come from a painful history. And as you indicate, the story you've told about those chemical weapons, that really gives you a sense of just that pain we come from. And when you don't have prosecutions and you don't have accountability, I would imagine in some way that delays the healing of this country. We need accountability. The TRC was not enough. Them referring the cases was not enough. There's got to be some level of accountability, and not only for the comfort of the families of the victims, for some of you that have been affected during the struggle, but for this country as a whole.
Yeah, as I'm saying, I've had discussions with the families. They do need that. Unfortunately, as time goes by, people die. And in some of these cases, the actual perpetrators are all dead. So you can't do much at this stage if they are dead. There's one person who, a deacon of my church, it's in my books, who supervised my torture at Krugersdorp police station. I've been looking for him. I haven't found him. And I ended up hearing that he's in the Free State. I tried to reach out to him, not to fight him, but just to wanted to know the truth, to say, how does he feel about doing what he has done? And then I was ready to forgive. I wasn't really punitive.
Yeah.
But I've now given up. I think he must be dead by now because they were older than us. So in a sense, for the families, what you need is prosecution. Of course, prosecution doesn't guarantee success.
Yeah.
And so in my particular case, I used the plea bargaining approach that would say, tell the story, and you would then go and do bargaining about whether you get sentence of what sentence, and also you would get suspended sentence. So they then gave all the information because they realized I had enough information for them to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
So you need a strategy, and the prosecution authority knew about that. By the way, they tried to fight around my case. At one stage, they threatened charging me. And I said, go ahead, charge me. But I know where I'm going. I've got information until actually they charged them.
Yeah.
So this is not an easy route. That's why I am worried about going the commission route. It may look for somebody who delayed things somewhere else. And it may find that person, it may not find that person, but that doesn't bring closure to the families. I think for the families is there sufficient evidence now? Can you charge the people? Why is the National Prosecution Authority not charging them now? If they don't have the evidence, then of course they can't do it. But you can do plea bargaining. We agreed after the TRC that not everybody went to the TRC and had a settlement there. We need to say to them, give us the information. That's all I wanted. Now I know how I was poisoned.
Yeah. Let's talk about the GNU now and where the country finds itself. We're commemorating Workers' Day today. From your own assessment, are we on the right track?
Well, the question is it's whether the GNU is on the right track or whatever. My view is let's spend more time to fix this country. And this is what I've been doing in the last 6 months or so. And we've been working through the Veterans League, because those are the people who know where we come from and know why we are here and why we shouldn't be here. And we have a plan. And that plan is going to be unfolding very soon, to go to the people and say, this is what we did the first 15 years. And it was very successful. Something went wrong, and then hell broke loose. The issues of corruption got into the place, state capture, etc. But we have turned the corner after the Zondo Commission, except that you had to clean the police services, intelligence services, prosecution authority. Fortunately, the judges were not corrupted. They did their best to capture the judges. And fortunately, the military was not corrupted. And so we had institutions of the state which stood the pressure. We're now we're at a stage where people are now being arrested. They are being charged. And what we need to do is to make sure we clean up the system, because they deployed in people with no capacity to run municipalities and at various other levels. We need to make sure there's delivery of quality services to our people. And this is what we need to do. And we've, in the last 6 months, 9 months, tested systems of monitoring, making sure the services are delivered. If there's no capacity, make sure the capacity is there. And if people are not able to do the job, then they must actually have made this statement that those who are given jobs they can't do, they may as well as start looking for jobs. Because if you don't deliver, there are going to be consequences. And that's what I was working on as I was called to come to this program. I really believe that we made it before. We transformed this country in a big way. In the first 15 years, we knew how to govern. Nobody should teach us how to govern. And we can actually turn the country around. Then the issue of GNU for me are neither here or there. What we need now is action to make sure the people of South Africa are treated in a decent way.
Yeah, and part of cleaning up the system involves also ensuring that there's accountability for crime, accountability for state capture, which really was quite a centerpiece that led to quite a lot of destruction that you describe. You are the chair of the Integrity Commission in the ANC. You've done a lot of work on those that are have been mentioned in the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. Has that work really resulted, or is it bearing any fruit in as far as cleaning up the system is concerned? Your work as the Integrity Commission.
Well, I mean, cleaning the system, it's also meaning cleaning the ANC. I mean, you have to clean within the ANC. No, the commission has done its work. I've been there now for, is it about 18 years, 2 years now? 18 months, sorry, or 2 years.
I think we've just lost now the Reverend Frank Chikane there. Apologies for that. We're going to take a quick ad break now. We'll be back after this. Stay with us. Welcome back. There's a sense of relief and closure as the police search and rescue unit pulled wreckage of a VW Polo from the SYNOPSIS River in Gauteng earlier today. The police have confirmed that the vehicle was used by the 3 police officers whose bodies were retrieved from the river earlier this week. The officers were reported missing while traveling from Bloemfontein to Limpopo on official deployment. The police minister is Mchunu, joining us now via video link. Minister, thank you for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Clement, and good evening to the viewers.
Yeah, so the police have really done a good job. I mean, the efficiency with which they have conducted this investigation, the police, the rescue and investigation teams who worked tirelessly to recover the bodies, and now this vehicle that they were traveling in. What does this latest recovery explain about what could have happened to the officers?
Well, let me start by once more passing our condolences to the family as we continue to witness developments around this matter. But what it means is that we are getting closer to unraveling the whole matter. If you take it that first, we were extremely worried and saddened by the disappearance, and this took place for some days, having to talk to the families and everyone involved, their colleagues and everybody. Then came some clue which led us to, or led police to the river itself. And that didn't bring any relief, but it did give a pointer where searches should be done. This was the team working 24/7 in a war room that was set up immediately we got the news. Now, then we do know from the briefings that National Commissioner made to us yesterday, that late, that they have felt the divers something underwater, but and they suspect that it is a vehicle, but we couldn't say so before it actually happened. But that was actually taking us closer. Now, remember, there are families in this matter. And as long as there was something that was not conclusive, something that was not connecting, something that was still a question, they remained hung and very, very worried. Now, what is going to follow is that the experts are then going to do their investigation on the car, on the vehicle itself, check everything that needs to be checked. But there's no doubt now that this is the vehicle that the three were using. The only thing is, if you look at it, what exactly would have happened, and they will go back to the area, do all the work so that we get to the bottom of this.
And obviously, forensics will continue, as you say, with investigation. But as you've seen, Minister, there are all sorts of speculations, as you can imagine. Some people, including some family members, have been asking if this really was an accident, given that these were police officers. Maybe they were investigating serious matters. Have you completely, as the police, ruled out any foul play and concluded, or have you just concluded that this recovery of the vehicle then proves that this must have been an accident, just based on your preliminary evidence?
Firstly, on the opinions and speculations that were made by people, including family members, that is totally understandable to us, and we accept that. The only thing that we did was to make an appeal that while we do so, and we have rights to do so, we needed to be circumspect and not start to be conclusive about it. That was our worry when some of the speculations were sort of conclusive, and some even casting aspersions on the ongoing investigation before it could unravel anything or come to an end. It's fine to speculate, but even that we understand, because people were worried about what happened. Now, now that verifications so far point to the vehicle, to the vehicle that was used, undoubtedly now, the chassis and everything that was found inside the vehicle, we need to pass that phase and come to terms with the fact that they disappeared and something terrible happened to them and got to the river. They've been discovered. It is them. And then thirdly, the vehicle in which they were traveling has also been discovered. Now, gradually, some of the questions that were involved, that were part of the speculations and whatever that went with it, would close because the answers are being provided by what is happening at the moment. And we hope that all of us will try and work ourselves towards some closure and leave the family, the relatives and everybody, and ask for comforting the family outside of saying, yes, your members have passed on, we've heard it, but somebody still has to answer this and that and that. And when you do so, you add pain on that. So at least there's now limited questions, not pain. Pain is there, and it's still very fresh, and it is still, piercing the hearts and the feelings of families and who are with them. But what is gradually closing is the number of questions that still need to be answered by those who are investigating the aspects.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, Minister, can we please get some clarity on that IPID report on Phalaphala that has been classified? There have been lots of questions and confusions about why the report has been classified. Why is it that that report was described as top secret? And do you know if it will be declassified at some point?
The report of the IPID on Phalaphala was classified simply because IPID was not the only body that was dealing with the matter. They were dealing with some aspects of Phalaphala. There were other bodies or other entities or other investigators that were busy dealing with other aspects, including aspects of a criminal nature. Now, whatever the report of IPID has inside, it has to be checked across, corroborated, and those that are involved, they need to be informed in a due process, in a properly measured process, so that you don't unduly disclose something when another body or another investigator is still dealing with some critical matters of a criminal nature. So it was actually a matter of trying to be as coordinated as possible on the side of IPID, which they reported to us was behind that report being classified. So once they have collated all the information and done everything that they need to do in terms of the due process, we believe that there would be no reason to keep the report as such.
All right. Senzo Mchunu, Minister of Police, thank you so much for speaking to us on Face the Nation tonight. And thanks to you for watching the Thursday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Tuesday next week at 8 p.m. Have a good evening. Cheers.